Hi. So we have been exploring the learnings and the reflections that have been coming out of the Leading Accountability program as I've engaged with leaders in individual coaching, group coaching, and in email exchanges, where we're making sense out of how leaders lead accountability. So an interesting part of what we cover in the program is making a distinction between responsibility and accountability. This is common, I think, in leadership development, law, and theory and training programs across the world. Um, you can, in short, you can be accountable for something without being responsible. So responsibility has got to do with actually taking the actions, doing the work. So as a leader, I'm accountable for the work being done by people who I manage, but they are responsible for doing the work. I cannot do all the work as a leader. That is why we disseminate duties and we delegate effectively. So an interesting challenge came up in several of the conversations with leaders in which there was sense making around the difference between responsibility and accountability. And how this shows up is that sometimes there is resistance or there's a reaction with leaders around being kept accountable when they were not involved in something whatsoever. And so there may be defensiveness, there may be disengagement, there may be frustration around that, which usually, if there is pressure to continue keeping the leader accountable for what people are responsible for and they didn't do that work, usually the response of leaders is to start to want to control. So um, there are many types of responses that I'm not going to go into, but one of them is the belief that, well, if I'm going to be kept accountable for work that I'm not doing, that other people are doing, then I'm going to have to start controlling people in order to ensure that I don't get into trouble. Now, part of what is useful in exploring this, and what came up in the conversation, is to make a distinction as a leader that you are not responsible for doing the work, but you're accountable for this reason. You carry responsibility as a leader for things that the people who are doing the work cannot be responsible for. And oftentimes, if we consider that there are many types of failure and that not all failure is blameworthy, some failure is attributable to processes or to lack of skill or misunderstanding because accountability was not created properly. And those are examples of the domain in which a leader is responsible, but the person doing the work is not responsible. So the structure of teams, the ability for teams to effectively collaborate because of the structure, how communication and information flows, the capacity that people have to collaborate, the permission that they have to collaborate, or the barriers that are put in to actually prevent that between teams. Those are examples of the things that individuals who do the work, team members, they do not necessarily have agency over those, but the leader does. So the leader is responsible for those, which is the structure in which the work takes place. And the leader is also responsible for creating the environment in which people create accountability. So if that environment for people to create accountability is not set up properly, if the leader is unskillful in delivering accountability conversations, if the 5 steps, for example, that we cover in the program are not skillfully delivered, then how on earth can you keep people accountable for failures that may have arisen out of something that is not within their domain? And it is for that reason that a leader is accountable for the failures that take place in work that subordinates do. Another reason is because the leader is responsible for fixing the structure, the accountability creation, the collaboration capability, etc., 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 in ways that will ensure that those problems do not happen again. And a leader is also responsible for troubleshooting failures in accountability and for delivery failures. A leader is also responsible to ensure that there's continuous improvement and learning from issues where accountability had failed or where delivery had failed. And it is for these three reasons in general that a leader is accountable for work that people do as subordinates or team members underneath a typical hierarchical structure. And it is for that reason that a leader does not need to, or would not necessarily need to have to, become defensive or frustrated when there is a failure within the system. Why do I say that? Because the leader takes a stance that what they need to focus on is their responsibility. Yes, we have to fix the work that needs to be done. And we can also place our focus on what got in the way. What am I not doing as a leader in order to ensure that this commitment could have been kept? And by taking that responsibility, it helps when the energy of accountability comes our way as leaders, when we are being kept accountable. It helps us to see that energy as a transformative improvement and a support for our leadership stance. Because if we see it with those three perspectives, it is easier for us to take that energy inward, where we can then actually bring positive change. What are you hearing? I hope you found this useful. What are your thoughts?